Whenever I tell a story these days, I feel conscious of the fact that I sound like W.C. Fields in It's a Gift. That or Rowley Birkin QC. You know, it was that dreadful summer in Afghanistan where we lost the bottle opener and had to live on food and water alone. But that's the nature of it. My stories do begin in a different historical era altogether. The trick is not to look like W.C. Fields in It's a Gift. I first came to Norwich in 1994. Back then, I didn't know the difference between Gnosticism and Hermeticism, Palladian and Neo-Palladian architecture, Plasticism and Neoplasticism. I didn't know that an Ouroboros was a circular image of a snake or a dragon eating its own tail. I didn't know that a mandala was an accretion of symbolism intended to induce meditation or trance-like states. But I had begun to collect knowledge. I did, of course, know the difference between theology and theosophy, like any decent notebook-toting indie kid of the early 90s. I did actually run around with a notebook in those days, trying to record details, names, dates of artists, architects, thinkers and writers. Trouble with that is, you don't need to do it anymore because of the internet. I suppose it's just the march of time. I suppose people in the 1300s were annoyed when William Langland published The Vision of Piers Plowman and thought, I don't have to remember my allegorical dreamlike visions anymore, now he's written them down. But I'm of an age, aren't I? Everything before I was 35 is a great idea, and everything after is an absolute disgrace, eroding the fabric of society.
You're a dinosaur.
Yeah, 1994. I'm put in mind of Sun and Fun by John Betjeman, when Boris used to call in his Sedanka, when Teddy took me down to his estate, when my clothes were in the fashion, when my nose excited passion, when my bows were never cross if I was late. Yeah, I was taken to see my friend's estate in Norwich that year. It was a Lada Riva Estate with the wheel arch dropped. We had a piece of foam and we slept in the back of it, on a piece of waste ground by Anglia Square. Ask me why we lived on a piece of waste ground in the back of a Lada Riva Estate in Norwich in 1994. Can't tell you. Reason being, that version of me isn't really here anymore. Bits of it have dropped off, been added to, much like the city itself. There's a core of being that's still me, and there's a core of being that's still Norwich. I'm going to go and have a look at it today. Those bits get pulled off and added to by the passage of time, of course, and the vagaries of fashion, which is, as we are told, merely the return of the clothes you are no longer able to wear. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure whether it's entirely objective. Some things are subjectively good and subjectively bad. I've seen a lot of lads with mullets recently. They weren't good in '83. They're not good now. I used to know a bloke in Briley Hill who used to hide photos of him with a mullet in his drawer in the kitchen. Well, there ain't going to be iCloud storage big enough, lads. I'm telling you now. I am, of course, aware that they do have Sky back where I come from, although sometimes in the West Midlands it's tempting to think it's just the top of the shopping centre. But they're not quite like those big East Anglian skies for me. The clouds drifting behind, making the great churches seem to sail across the landscape. Puts me in mind of the old microcosm versus macrocosm dilemma of the young man, before you realise that time's just running out anyway, regardless. Like Philip Larkin says, whether you use it or not, it goes. Do you stand back and drink in the full spectacle of the cathedral itself, or do you spend an age analysing each roof boss on the Leon vault? I remember someone told me once that there was a pub for every day of the year and a church for every week of the year in Norwich. Now, that's clearly no longer the case, but it's still not badly off. There are 7 pubs on the National Register for pubs with historic interiors, which is 7 more than most places, and there's double that many churches worth visiting, which is about 14 more than most places. I'm inexorably drawn to both, as you know. And maybe there are certain parallels. They're both sort of repositories of experience and faith of a certain sort, lapped by time within and without. And I seem to engage with the same sort of intersecting rhythms and vistas as the buildings are added to and time transforms them. I feel like I'm in a holiday in this little side room here in the Adam and Eve. Oh yeah, I am. St John Madder Market, sadly closed, but housing within the Leia Monument, speaking as we were of mandalas, Ouroboros, Hermeticism, Gnosticism, the whole esoteric tradition. There's a mysterious pair of black men's shoes over there, looking like they're about to slide into a medieval dumbwaiter. Puts me in mind of Pemberton and Shearsmith's masterpiece Diddle Diddle Dumpling. And do you know what? The neon sign of the Yard blinking through the arch there does absolutely nothing to dispel the sense of the medieval city. I love it when that happens. A little glimpse of what Coventry could have had. Little echoes of Steep Hill in Lincoln, I think. Where else were you saying it reminded you of?
I don't know if it reminds me of anywhere in a strong way. I just keep rounding corners, and that's we were in Coventry.
Yeah.
Little, just those little snippets of medieval Coventry, and then
Yeah.
those kind of streetscapes where you can just see what it might have been like once upon a time. I keep rounding corners here and thinking about what Coventry might have been without having been bombed.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, I don't know why I can't substantiate this, but a little bit of Hull.
I think I can substantiate that because I think it is the city for the entire area, like Hull is. I think you were talking about the fact that it's got a much bigger centre for its size of population than Wolverhampton, and I think that's why, because Wolverhampton, there's an alternative, there's Birmingham. Here, it's this or nothing, baby, and if it's this or nothing, baby, then I'm happy.
But it's, it does have a little feel of a different emanation of Englishness being over in the east.
Yeah.
I don't know this area of the country at all.
Yeah.
I can just feel that slight difference.
Yeah, I can. It's massively indicative, I think, of the civic scale and grandeur of the place. That anywhere else, St Peter Mancroft would be the cathedral. Here, it's just one of two beautiful medieval buildings flanking the marketplace on either side. Norwich might be the home of Ed Balls, Cathy Dennis and Sir John Mills, but it's definitely George Skipper who's left the most indelible mark in recent times. From the East Anglian Belle Epoque of the Royal Arcade here, to the marble magnificence of Marble Hall, Gerald's itself, those fabulous terracotta friezes of artists and architects working in Cossey ware, the London and Provincial. John Betjeman said of him that he did for Norwich what Gaudi did for Barcelona. I hope he said it like this: George Skipper did for Norwich what Gaudi did for Barcelona, in that most imitable of cadences, more easy and irresistible to imitate than anyone in the world other than Ewan McGregor and Ralph Richardson and Robert De Niro and
John
Peel, yeah, and Richard Bryars. Other than that, the number one. frigid East Anglian skies roll on. The cathedral tower punctuates them year by year, decade by decade, century, sliding into century. Things change, things stay the same. One thing that hasn't changed is that cyclical click, the turn of the year. The beginning of the summer holidays, very teachery way to think, I know, that green chasm of light at the end of July seems a lot further off now than the darkened fire grate of September, October, November and December. The light is now prismatic, the outline stark and suffused with yellow. The heat dies quickly and leaves fall in the cathedral close and gently onto the River Wensum. I used to struggle to identify the particular power that these buildings exerted upon me. I think I'm closer to it now. It's that they seem to exist in a different time stream, exude an illusion of permanence, of a larger permanence without. When I first came in 1994, it was much like the beginning of most decades, very much like the end of the previous. It was still the 80s. 4 years later, Britpop had bedded in. The clothes in the shop attested to that. Little bit Jarvis Cocker in the cut. Today, all those years later, there's a vintage pulp poster in the toilet of the cafe. All of this means nothing in the lifespan of a building like this. It shrugs off our lives as if they were, which perhaps they are, nothing more than a series of snapshots devoid of context. It is, of course, though, just an illusion of permanence. This cathedral itself is just a little lozenge in the tiny townscape of the model village, surrounded, of course, by the model of the model of the model of the model village, and so on and so forth. And beyond it, blinding blackness, perhaps blinding light.